Well, that was fun. That was really fun. And Oregon fans right now probably feeling like Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time at long last for a reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view post Oregon State blowout. Oh boy, what a football game that was. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. And as a reminder, this is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, plenty of takeaways here. Just about all of them good, though certainly not exclusively, but overwhelmingly, this was a fun game. So there's a scene in Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, which is probably the best of the three, but I really did love the third one, where throughout the entire movie, Star-Lord, played by Chris Pratt, also known as Peter Quill, is trying to make himself be known by the name Star-Lord. And he's trying, and not everybody knows him by that name, and he calls himself that name, but nobody else calls him by that name. And then, towards the end of the movie, the half-robot bad guy who works for Ronan finally sees him, and without saying anything else, notices him and says, Star-Lord. And Chris Pratt's face lights up, and he goes, finally. And this is the epitome of how Oregon fans felt today. Finally, they ran the football. Finally, Dillon Gabriel had time to throw. Finally, the defense played well. Did not play perfectly. I didn't think they were great in the first half. Certainly they got, shall we say, screwed by a pretty egregious roughing the passer penalty. But if you are a great team, you are able to overcome such things. And Oregon pitches a shutout in the second half. Loved what I saw from the defense, but let's talk about the offense. Dillon Gabriel, 20-24, 291, 2 touchdowns. Completed, I think it was his first 15 passes. Oregon goes for 240 on the ground, 7.5 per carry. This is the team that we've been looking for. This is the team. That right there. That team. I don't know why it took a road game for Oregon to find that form, but boy, did they ever. Because that second half was as good a football as Oregon's played all year. I tweeted out after the first drive, when Oregon marched down the field and scored, was that the best offensive drive of the year? Probably was. Came after the defense, got a stop. Tyshim Johnson, what a play on third down. Then the false start, the field goal, Mateo Uyunglele blocks the lineman into a low kick, and boom, Oregon goes down the field, takes a 7-0 lead. Now, Oregon State, as we expected, put up a fight. They responded. They kept it close. They hung around. They took advantage of opportunities. And eventually Oregon just overwhelmed them. Eventually Oregon had too many playmakers. Giovanni McCoy in this game, 22 of 34 for 172 yards. He completed 2 more passes than Gabriel and had 119 fewer passing yards and no touchdowns. I felt that Oregon did one of my big keys going into this game, create explosive passing plays. Create explosive plays, period. Because if you turn this into any sort of track meet, Oregon State can't keep up. And that's what the Ducks were able to do. It looked like in the first half, the Ducks were not, they didn't do that in the first half. They did not. Oregon State dominated time of possession. It was a great script. I was texting a couple Beaver friends at the half and said, boy, I bet you guys feel pretty solid. And one of them said, I'll take that every day of the week. Down 22-14. Yeah, Oregon's getting the ball, but Oregon State dominated the time of possession. They were really good on third down. They had a couple of touchdowns, and they were within 1 score. And that was a good place for Oregon State to be. And then Oregon opened it up in the second half and blanked them 27-0 in the second half of this football game. It was a really impressive performance, start to finish. Oregon scored at least 1 touchdown in every single quarter, and I felt like the defense made some great halftime adjustments, which is a stark contrast. I get questions all the time about Lanning as an in-game coach and adjustments and how good he really is and whatnot. By the way, I'm wearing the suit. I took off the tie because I've been wearing that for a while. But Southern Utah had a game tonight. I was calling the game on ESPN+. Unfortunately, didn't go the T-Birds' way. But as per tradition, as everydayers who have been with me for a while, I keep the suit on, and then I come here, I press record, and we go from there. So I thought that Dan Lanning and the coaching staff, how much better can you be in the halftime adjustments? That was some Nick Aliotti stuff. I mean, Oregon State came out and refresh my memory if I'm wrong, everybody. I think it was back-to-back 3-and-outs to start the second half. After Oregon went down, got a field goal, I appreciate that the Ducks were able to take the points. Atticus Sappington had a nice day. And then the defense just came out and got a couple stops. And I think the defense is certainly missing Jeff Bossa, who is not at 100%, and he is on a snap count. I think Oregon's definitely going to need him going forward when you look ahead to games like Ohio State or Michigan or, I don't think Washington is that bad, Wisconsin, whoever. You're going to need Jeff Bossa over the course of the season. But I thought that Bryce Betcher made a statement early in the game. I thought Devin Jackson had an awesome game. I didn't see how many tackles Jackson. Betcher led the way with 11 tackles. 11 tackles. He was just flying all over the field. Devin Jackson only had 3, but his impact on this game, I felt, was much stronger than that. Tatum Tuioti had a big day, 2 sacks for the Ducks. Terrence Green had one, and Tatum Tuioti had one as well. But I thought this was such a sigh of relief. Such a sigh of relief for Duck fans to just go, finally. I mean, where is that team been? I got a bunch of messages from people, insiders and people that are Locked on Ducks insiders, that is, and people messaging me on Twitter or tweets like, finally, where's this team been? Yeah, hence my initial reaction. Finally, It's like Oregon fans have been holding their breath ever since the second half of that Idaho game going, are we going to see a good team? Are they going to look good? All 3 phases, Oregon won. And I am especially happy that the defense was able to come through after. Look, I've watched a lot of football in the NFL. I've seen some bad roughing the passer penalties. Can't think of one worse than that because the call was so bad that they picked up the flag for targeting, which is the reason they threw the flag in the first place. But then because you can't pick up the roughing the passer flag, which is a dumb rule, but the NCAA is incompetent, so what do you expect? Devin Jackson should have been credited with a quarterback pressure and almost forced an interception, and it should have been 3rd and 10. And guess what? When you are a good team or a great team, you are able to overcome those sorts of obstacles. Make no mistake about it. If Oregon could have gotten off the field on 3rd and 10, Oregon State kicks a field goal. That's 4 points that they had the opportunity to stop, but that the officials granted them the opportunity to go and obtain. That's a frustrating thing. I know a lot of Duck fans, myself included, were frustrated with that going into the half. That's pathetic from that officiating crew. Pathetic that they made that call. And guess what? Oregon made sure it didn't matter. And that was one of the most confidence-boosting things to me about this defense and about this game. That could have been a pivotal point where you look and go, wow, Oregon State's hanging around in this game because they got a touchdown instead of a field goal right before the half, and Oregon had no time to try to respond. But the Ducks came out, they marched right down the field. The offense was unstoppable. What do you know? They ran the football, and they went with the offensive line combination we saw at the end of last week. And that was Poncho at center, Strother left guard, Harper right guard, Connerly and Cornelius the tackles. Dylan Gabriel was not sacked. Dylan Gabriel was seldom pressured. Oregon ran the ball at a clip of 7.5 yards a carry. That'll do, donkey. That'll do. And they got the job done. So let me know your thoughts. I've still got more thoughts. What was the best part? What was the best part about this game, aside from what I just mentioned, that they overcame that particular penalty? That is coming up next. First, let's talk about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They have superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. You know what's available to everybody, though? LinkedIn Jobs, and that's great news because if you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board, folks. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. Why? Because they know if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free. That's a good price. For free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. That is a joyous second segment sip. I am rooting in these times for the Beavs every day of the year except one. And on this one, I'd like to win by a score of, 49-14. That's cool. And indeed, it was. So I think the best part of this game for Oregon was, aside from overcoming the penalty, because again, I think that on the road, that could have spiraled. Crowd was still in it. Beavers were still in it. And they came out and they responded in a big way. They made great halftime adjustments. That, I think, was the best part. But the second best part to me was the way that offense, it was poetry in motion. Was there a better way to get every single playmaker involved? Listen to the numbers. Jaden Lamar, for goodness sake, got involved. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different Ducks caught a pass in this game. And Kenyon Sadiq wasn't as involved as he has been in past weeks, but Tez Johnson, bounce back game, not surprising. Jaden Lamar, the big screen pass. T. Ferg, another great game. Trayshawn Holden, the touchdown. Evan Stewart. One thing about Evan Stewart that I love is he can be, on a day like this, the 5th leading receiver for the Ducks. And those 3 receptions for 26 yards were still mighty impressive because he just goes out there and is cooking. I mean, cooking kids on the perimeter. Early in the game, I forget which drive it was, he beat an Oregon State corner. And with no push-off, he just ran a comeback or a hitch right at the first down marker. He had like 6 yards of separation. He's a crazy route runner. And yet on a day like today, he is Oregon's 5th leading receiver. That is a dangerous offense. Noah Whittington looked awesome. Jordan James was even better. Gabriel with the explosive run. We hadn't seen the speed option yet. A couple of you had asked about the quarterback run getting more involved entering this game. Well, there you go. Gabriel, I have to tell you, when he ran that speed option, fakes the pitch, and takes off running, I had a flashback to the Rose Bowl in 2014. Guess it was technically 2015, New Year's Day. But number 8 in an Oregon jersey, run the speed option, fake the pitch, tuck it up, run for a touchdown. That was a thing of beauty. They were explosive on the ground. They were explosive in the passing game. They were multiple. They didn't feel predictable. They were efficient. They were effective. It was just a great thing to watch. The first drive set the tone offensively for Oregon in this game, and then they kept that standard. It was sometimes when offenses are struggling, and I'm sure you've seen this in Oregon games over the years at times, an offense can come out and on script, first drive, you script a lot of the plays. If you stay ahead of the chains, you stay on script, a lot of times that script will look great. And then as the game goes on, the offense kind of fades. There was no fading here. There was no fading here whatsoever because Oregon had no punts. No punts in the game. No, that's the best game that you could possibly put up if you're Will Stein and company. You've got to be absolutely thrilled because Ross James never came on the field. Did not show up. Was not needed. That's what Oregon should have looked like. And yeah, they should have looked like that over the last couple of weeks. Nobody plays their best football in week 1. And through the first couple of weeks, there are plenty of Oregon fans out there worried about, is the season going to be a bust? Is it going to be this, that? Look, they might not reach their full potential. They might not reach a lot of people's expectations. But you have to remember, it's a long season. They didn't play their best in the first 2 weeks. If you were worried about that, and I know a couple of you at least out there that were, did you think that was going to maintain itself for 12 weeks this year? If it had, then that'd be a problem. But now you have to take a better performance against Boise State, which I said going into this game and why I thought Oregon would win. And solid prediction out there from the Beaver YouTube commenters that said that Oregon State was going to win the game. That was solid. Like almost had it. Really, really, really close. But I think that for Oregon, you have to look at each game and say there's been a progression. There's been a progression here. Bad game, the worst performance of the Dan Lanning era against Idaho. A better performance, but not a good one against Boise State. And this was a complete game. For, I'll call it 6 of the 8 quarters, as in 4 quarters on offense, 4 quarters on defense. I think the first 2 quarters on defense were not good. But the second 2 literally cannot be any better when you pitch a shutout. So I just thought the way that Oregon operated in this game was so encouraging to see because they were able to protect Dylan Gabriel. They were able to run the football. They were explosive in the run game. They were explosive in the pass game. They had play action. It felt like Will Stein had everything available to him. Whereas in the Idaho game, when they couldn't run the ball worth a darn, you couldn't go play action. Idaho's not falling for that. You couldn't take a deep shot in the Boise State or the Idaho game because you didn't have time. Now, they did it a couple times against Boise State successfully, but you weren't giving Dylan Gabriel time to throw the football, so you couldn't push it down the field. And then you come into this game, and admittedly, Oregon State ran a handful of 8-man coverages, which made it easier, but that offensive line, night and day. I mean, night and day. I'll talk about this more as the week goes on. Do you put Matthew Bedford in the starting lineup? That's a legitimately fair question with the way that group just played. I mean, they ran the football, they protected Gabriel, they did everything they needed to. I didn't see the final penalty yardage. I don't think it was very high. Oregon had 36 penalty yards in the game, and 15 of those were a bunch of crap. That's 21 penalty yards. I'll take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Over 300 passing, over 200 rushing at 240 yards. I mean, this was just complete and utter domination. Complete and utter domination by the Ducks. Did it take a little while to get going? Yeah. If you watch college football games, that happens a lot. Very rarely do you have, I think a lot of Oregon fans get to the Chip Kelly expectation where you're playing an inferior opponent, you're up 42-3 at the half. Okay, that wasn't normal. That's still not normal. There's some teams that do that. Go look around college football, though. Even teams that win big. Alabama beat Wisconsin, will just score 42-10 in Madison today. 42-10. How long did it take them to get that sort of lead? They needed a drive at the end of the first half to make it a 3-score game. Like, sometimes it takes a while, but eventually you enforce your will. And eventually you play better because you have better players across the board. I mean, Oregon's talent difference in this game showed up and they showed out. They were causing havoc. They were making life difficult for Oregon State offensively in the second half, and then they couldn't keep up. And that was one of the ways I felt like Oregon could pull away in this game. My score prediction was 31-20 and was only one score off with Oregon State's point total, but the offense put it together. They put it together. And this is always what this Oregon team has been capable of. I think there are some fans that, are worried or jumping ship or whatever because, well, they played so horribly in the first couple of weeks. They're not as good as they are on paper. No, that team is still in there. You just have to find it. You just have to pull it out. And sometimes it takes a little to get going. But that version of Oregon, that looked like a national title contender. That looked like a team that can beat Ohio State in a few weeks. That looks like a team that's winning at least 10 games in the regular season and making the college football playoff. And that was my favorite thing to watch. The fluidity and continuity with which Oregon played that game. 36 penalty yards and 15 of them absolute crap. Shout out to Devin Jackson and shout out to Bryce Betcher because Jeff Bossa is clearly not 100% and those two dudes are playing out of their minds. Gosh, you love to see it. Oregon needed this game. They needed that performance in a big way for 2 reasons. Not one, but 2. 2 reasons. Those reasons are coming up next. First, make sure you fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. They have 35 different meals, more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You'll always have new flavors to explore. Make your day delicious. From breakfast to dessert, stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use the code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. Pretty sweet deal. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Go check out Factor Meals today. 2 reasons Oregon needed this game and why this is such a big statement victory. Number 1, there is something to be said about self-belief within a locker room that you can play to your potential. Could Oregon have played a little better? Yeah, final game score could have been 49-7 or 49-10. That's about as perfect of a game as you can play offensively. Plus, Atticus Sappington hit both of his field goals. Oregon had the 2-point conversion. Kenyon Sadiq involved there. Like, there's so many weapons on this offense, and they all got involved, and that was great to see. But proving to yourselves, not the people outside the locker room, like me or you or national media or whoever, but proving to yourselves, hey, we are that good of a team. Hey, we can play at that level. This is the standard. That's the first thing. Second thing, why this is so big, Oregon's carrying this into a bye. Your audio's working fine, folks. I'm just letting that marinate for a moment. Oregon's carrying this performance into the bye. Idaho stunk. Boise State mostly stunk, though not entirely. This game was 2 defensive quarters away from being a full, almost perfect, complete football game. That's how close it was. The first 2 quarters of defense were not good. Oregon State should not be able to possess the ball for that long. Shouldn't be able to do it. But they did. Credit to them. Giovanni McCoy, solid player, scrappy with his legs, made some plays. Okay. But then they come out in the second half and they pitch a shutout. And the offense, start to finish, from the moment the offense took the field, they looked ready, they looked fired up, they moved guys around, they protected Dylan Gabriel, who was making great reads, delivering accurate throws. I mean, aside from leading Tez Johnson a little bit too far, could the offense have been anywhere any better? Could they have been any better? I don't think so. I don't think so. 49 points on the road. You took the crowd out of it early in the second half. When the game was still in doubt, you came out in the third quarter and you put your foot on their necks and you kept your foot on the gas pedal. And that was a great thing to see. And now Oregon carries this into the bye where they can get Matthew Bedford healthy. And if he's, going to provide something else to that offensive line, they feel like he's better than Harper or Strother, who I thought both played really well today. Okay, great. Then you have a 6th offensive lineman that you feel pretty good about. And, if Davey Uli ever comes back, you'd have 7 that you feel good about. And that's a much more tenable interior offensive line situation than what Oregon felt like it had a week ago. So I thought they fixed a lot of their problems. They played a really good football game, and they get to carry that into the bye. Maybe that's more me speaking on behalf of myself and many of you Oregon fans, that we get to go into the bye week feeling, hey, I saw that Oregon football team play the way they're capable of, and boy, it looks good. It looks really, really good. I don't think Oregon State sucks. I really don't. I think they're probably going to be a 7-8 win team this year. Like, they're playing 7 Mountain West teams in FCS and 4 Power 4s. I don't think they're as good as Washington State, who beat the Huskies on a goal line stand. What a football game that was played at Lumen Field earlier this afternoon. But I think for Oregon State is not the best team you're going to play this year. It is the caliber of opponent you're going to play in the next couple of weeks. And if you stack together 2 more performances like this, after the bye, Oregon goes at UCLA. UCLA stinks. They should do this exact same thing. This is what we'll be looking for. This is the standard. You know it's possible. But carrying this into the bye week, they can get a little healthy, I think does a lot for everybody's confidence. You don't want that to move into overconfidence, but that's on the coaching staff to keep guys' heads in the right place. You can clean up the things that need to get cleaned up, but I feel a lot better about Oregon today than I did coming into this game. And it was because of how they played in that third quarter, where they put their foot down and said, no, we're not doing this again. And then they scored early in the fourth, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, ball game is over now. And then Jayden Lamar gets in on the action, catches a screen pass, goes the distance. I mean, what a play call. That was 3rd and 10. And the game was essentially over at that point, but that made it like over. You know, it was 35-14. I think when that happened, I could have that wrong. But Oregon was up big, and then they went up really, really big. And, you know, Oregon is the better team, and they put it on display. And that was a really, really encouraging sign. You got 2 more games to play at that level, and then you better bring in October 12th against Ohio State. Because if you don't, you got problems. But for all the frustrations Oregon fans have had in the last couple of weeks with bad performances against teams from the state of Idaho, you get to feel good about this one for the next 2 weeks until they take the field again at the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles against UCLA. My dad and brother, I think, are going to be at that game. I wish I could be there. I cannot. Southern Utah has got a game. But I think this was such a big performance to just stabilize things, settle a lot of doubts, settle a lot of worries. Nobody plays perfect football every single week. I'm going to talk about that more on Monday's show. But I feel good. I feel really good about that performance on both sides, which I'll talk about more. Let me know your questions. Let me know your comments, thoughts, concerns, statements of outrage. Shout out to Garrett Kepping, the best history and gov teacher that there ever has been at Lake Oswego High School. That's going to do it for me today. Thanks for making this your first listen or your first view post college football viewing. Go make Locked On College Football your second. I keep you posted over there with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth, Big Ten, SEC, and beyond. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.